The room was quiet, too quiet for a place that once echoed with laughter. Soft golden light from the bedside lamp spread across the neatly made bed, casting long shadows on the walls. Everything looked perfect, too perfect. As if someone had carefully arranged the scene to hide something beneath it. A young nurse stood beside the bed, her expression calm and professional. She gently held the arm of a little girl, helping her take slow, careful steps. The girl's small face was filled with determination, her brows slightly furrowed as she tried to balance. Her legs were supported by braces, each step a challenge, each movement a victory. "You're doing so well," the nurse whispered softly, her voice soothing. "Just a little more." The girl nodded, her lips pressed together in focus. She reached toward the wheelchair placed just ahead of her, her tiny fingers stretching as if it were the finish line of a long race. But something in the room felt off. Near the doorway, partially hidden in the dim hallway, a man stood silently. He wasn't supposed to be there. His presence was unnoticed, or perhaps ignored. His eyes were fixed on the nurse and the child, his expression unreadable, yet intense. He didn't move, didn't speak. He simply watched. The girl finally reached the wheelchair and held onto it for support, breathing heavily. A small smile appeared on her face, proud of what she had just achieved. "See," the nurse said, smiling warmly. "You're getting stronger every day." But her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The man in the hallway leaned slightly forward, as if trying to hear something, or perhaps making sure of something. His fingers tightened slightly at his side. There was tension in the air now, a silent, invisible thread connecting him to the scene inside. Inside the room, the nurse gently guided the girl to sit down. The wheelchair creaked softly as she settled in. The nurse adjusted the footrests and checked the straps, her movements precise and practiced. "You need to rest now," she said softly. "We'll try again tomorrow." The girl looked up at her, trusting and innocent. "Will I be able to walk like before?" For a brief second, the nurse hesitated. Then she smiled again. "Of course you will." But something about that answer felt rehearsed, like a line repeated too many times. Outside, the man's expression darkened. He stepped a little closer, still staying out of sight. His breathing was slow, controlled, but his eyes revealed a storm of thoughts. He knew something the little girl didn't. Inside, the nurse turned away briefly, reaching for a glass of water on the table. As she did, her face changed. The softness disappeared, replaced by something colder, distant. It lasted only a moment, but it was enough to feel unsettling. When she turned back, the gentle smile had returned. "Here," she said, handing the girl the glass. "Drink this." The girl took it without question. From the hallway, the man's eyes widened slightly. He shifted his weight, as if deciding whether to step in or stay hidden. His gaze moved from the glass, to the nurse, and back to the girl. Something wasn't right. The silence grew heavier. The ticking of a clock somewhere in the house suddenly sounded louder, sharper, like a countdown. Inside the room, the girl raised the glass to her lips. And in that exact moment, the man took a step forward. But it was already too late to pretend everything was normal. Something was about to happen. The moment stretched like a thread about to snap. "Wait." The man's voice cut through the silence, sharp and urgent. The girl froze, the glass still inches from her lips. Her wide eyes shifted toward the door as the man stepped fully into the room. The nurse turned abruptly, her calm expression cracking for the first time. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her tone no longer soft. The man ignored her question. His eyes were locked on the glass in the girl's hand. "Don't drink that," he said firmly, walking closer. The girl looked confused, her small hands trembling slightly. "Why?" The nurse quickly stepped in, placing a reassuring hand on the girl's shoulder. "It's just water," she said gently, though there was a sharp edge beneath her words. "He's mistaken." But the man shook his head. "No, I'm not." He stopped just a few feet away, his gaze unwavering. "I've been watching," he continued, his voice lower now but filled with intensity. "Something isn't right here." The nurse let out a quiet, controlled laugh. "You're overreacting. You shouldn't even be in this house." "Maybe not," he replied, "but I know what I saw." The tension in the room thickened. The girl looked between them, her trust beginning to crack under the weight of uncertainty. "What did you see?" the nurse asked, crossing her arms, trying to regain control. The man hesitated for a brief second, then spoke. Every day, she gets weaker after you give her something. Every day, you say she's improving, but she isn't. She's getting worse. The nurse's expression hardened. That's a serious accusation. And a true one, he shot back. The girl slowly lowered the glass, her breathing shallow. Is that true? She asked softly, looking up at the nurse. For a moment, the nurse said nothing. Then she sighed, her shoulders relaxing slightly, as if she were tired of pretending. You don't understand, she said quietly. The man's eyes narrowed. Then explain. The nurse looked at the girl, her gaze softening again, but this time, it felt different. Not warm, not kind, something darker. She was never supposed to walk again, the nurse said. Her condition, it wasn't going to improve. The girl's eyes filled with tears. But you said. I said what needed to be said, the nurse interrupted, her voice calm but cold. Hope can be motivating. The man clenched his fists. So you lied to her. I helped her, the nurse corrected. And I'm still helping her. His eyes flicked to the glass again. By giving her something that makes her weaker. The nurse didn't answer directly. Instead, she stepped closer to the girl and gently took the glass from her hands. You're tired, she said softly. You shouldn't listen to strangers. But the spell was broken. The girl pulled her hand back, her trust now replaced with fear. What's in it? She whispered. The room went silent again. The nurse looked at the glass, then back at the man. For the first time, there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. It's medicine, she said finally. The man shook his head slowly. Then let me see it. She hesitated. That hesitation said everything. The man stepped forward, reaching out. Give it to me. For a split second, it seemed like she might refuse. Her grip tightened around the glass. But then, she let it go. The man took it carefully, lifting it to eye level. The liquid looked clear, harmless. But appearances could lie. He turned toward the light, studying it closely. The girl watched him, her heart pounding in her chest. What is it? She asked again. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, his expression darkened. And when he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but filled with certainty. This isn't just water. The nurse's face went pale. And in that moment, everything changed. The air in the room turned heavy, suffocating. The man held the glass tightly, his eyes fixed on the clear liquid as if it carried a secret only he could see. The girl's breathing grew faster, her small hands gripping the sides of the wheelchair. What is it? She asked again, her voice trembling. The man lowered the glass slowly and looked at her. It's not something meant to help you, he said carefully. It's something meant to keep you weak. A sharp silence followed. The nurse's composure finally began to crack. That's not true, she snapped, but her voice lacked the confidence it had before. Then prove it, the man replied instantly. Drink it yourself. The challenge hung in the air like a blade. For a moment, the nurse didn't move. Her eyes flickered between the man and the girl. The calm, controlled mask she had worn was slipping away, revealing something desperate underneath. I don't need to prove anything, she said, but she took a small step back. That step was enough. The girl's eyes filled with fear. You said it would help me, she whispered. The nurse turned to her quickly. It does help you, she insisted, kneeling down. You don't understand. No, the man interrupted firmly. She understands more than you think. He walked closer, placing the glass on the table, out of the nurse's reach. You've been giving her something to slow her recovery. Maybe even stop it completely. That's ridiculous. The nurse shouted now, her voice rising. Why would I do that? The man's expression hardened. Because if she gets better, you're no longer needed. The words hit like thunder. The girl looked at the nurse, her lips trembling. Is that why? For a second, the nurse's face twisted with something unreadable, anger, fear, maybe even guilt. You don't know anything about me, she said quietly, her tone suddenly low and dangerous. I know enough, the man replied. I saw the prescription you hid. I checked the bottle you keep in your bag. That's not medicine for healing, it's something that causes fatigue, weakness, dependency. The girl gasped softly. Tears rolled down her cheeks now, silent and unstoppable. You lied to me, she said, her voice breaking. The nurse stood still, her breathing uneven. For the first time, she didn't try to deny it immediately. Instead, she looked away. I didn't have a choice, she said finally. The man shook his head. There's always a choice. No, she suddenly snapped, her voice echoing in the room. You don't understand what it's like. This job, this girl, this house, it's all I had. Her eyes were wide now, almost frantic. If she recovered, they wouldn't need me anymore. I would lose everything. The confession hung in the air like a dark cloud. The girl stared at her, heartbroken. So you kept me like this, just for yourself. The nurse's silence was the answer. The man stepped forward protectively, placing himself between them. It's over, he said firmly. You're not giving her anything else. The nurse's expression shifted again, this time into something colder, more calculating. You think you can stop me? She said quietly. Her gaze darted toward the table, toward the glass. Then, in a sudden movement, she lunged forward. But the man was faster. He grabbed the glass first, pulling it away and stepping back. The nurse froze, realizing she had lost control of the situation. Don't, he warned. The room fell into a tense stillness. The girl was crying now, quietly, her trust completely shattered. The nurse looked at her one last time. For a brief moment, something like regret flickered across her face. But it didn't last. Footsteps echoed faintly from somewhere else in the house. Someone was coming. The man's eyes shifted toward the door. This ends now, he said. And for the first time, the nurse had nowhere left to hide. The sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, echoing through the hallway like a warning. The nurse stood frozen, her eyes darting toward the door, then back at the man. For the first time since everything had begun, she looked truly afraid. The door swung open. A middle-aged couple rushed inside, the girl's parents. Their faces were filled with concern, their eyes immediately searching for their daughter. What's going on? The mother asked, her voice trembling as she hurried toward the wheelchair. The little girl burst into tears. Mama, she cried, reaching out. Her mother dropped to her knees, wrapping her in a tight embrace. What happened? Why are you crying? The father looked around, his gaze landing on the man, then the nurse, then the untouched glass on the table. His expression darkened. Someone explain. Now. The man stepped forward calmly. She was about to give your daughter something that isn't what it seems. The nurse quickly shook her head. That's not true. He's lying. Then let's test it, the man interrupted firmly. The room fell silent again. The father picked up the glass slowly, examining it. What is this? He asked the nurse, his voice cold and controlled. Medicine, she replied, but her voice was no longer steady. For what? He pressed. She didn't answer. That silence spoke louder than any confession. The mother looked up, her eyes filled with fear and anger. What have you been giving my child? Tears rolled down the girl's cheeks as she whispered, she said it would help me, but he said it makes me weak. The father's jaw tightened. He turned to the man. Are you sure? I am, the man said. And if you check her bag, you'll find more. Without wasting a second, the father moved to the nurse's belongings and opened it. Inside, he found a small bottle. He read the label, and his face went pale. This, he muttered, this isn't for recovery. The truth was no longer hidden. The nurse's shoulders dropped. The fight left her eyes. I didn't mean to hurt her, she said weakly. I needed this job. The mother stood up slowly, still holding her daughter close. You needed a job, she said, her voice shaking with anger, so you took away her chance to heal. The nurse had no answer. Moments later, more footsteps echoed, this time, firm and authoritative. Security had been called. As they entered the room, the nurse didn't resist. She simply lowered her head, knowing it was over. The little girl clung tightly to her mother, still shaken but safe. The man stepped back quietly, watching as the situation finally came to an end. The father approached him. You saved her, he said sincerely. We didn't see what was happening, but you did. The man nodded slightly. Just make sure she gets the right care now. The mother gently wiped her daughter's tears. You're going to be okay, she whispered. We promise. The girl looked up, her voice small but hopeful. I can still walk one day, right? Her parents exchanged a glance, this time, honest and full of determination. Yes, her father said firmly. With the right help, you will. A faint smile appeared on the girl's face, fragile but real. For the first time, the room didn't feel heavy. It felt free. Moral of the story. Not everyone who smiles is sincere, and not every kind word is truthful. True care comes from honesty, not convenience. Always question what doesn't feel right, because sometimes, courage to speak up can save a life.